Hello and welcome to this week's Different League Show, sponsored by Betfred, as we enter the final week of one of the craziest Premier League seasons ever. Well, since last season, anyway. And look, champions decided, relegation decided, top four still undecided, and what a massive result that was for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge on Tuesday night. And then there's Harry Kane to talk about as well. Lots to discuss in the company, and great to see Alan McInally's alongside Mark and myself. Mako, looking well. How are you?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I lost a bit of weight just for this particular show, because I know how well you look. Thankfully, we've got like the rose between two thorns. Yeah, good, great to be here, buddy. Yeah, looking for. I mean, it has been a great season. We've kind of organised everything really, but Champions League places are still up for grabs, so still plenty to talk about.
How's Jeff and the gang, the Soccer Saturday guys?
Yeah, they're all right. Yeah, well, Jeff's not. He's never that. He's never that. He's always that cup half full. The gang, unfortunately, has been a little bit diluted, but yeah, everything's fine. It's been a tough year for, I think, broadcasting and for us going to the games to watch games. I was saying to the lads earlier on, I went to Sheffield Wednesday. And it's a big old stadium, that, Scott, if you know, with the big girders. And I was on the concourse, and it was like spooky weird. There's nobody here. And you can hear the noise that you think would be there because we've played there and you've been in crowds, and it's just so strange. And I thought for the first time the other night for the Barnsley game, not so much the Bournemouth game, but the Barnsley game, I thought that really affected the game hugely. Yeah. I know that obviously Swansea beat Barnsley, but I thought for the first time, that's exactly why we need the crowds back.
It's going to be so interesting, isn't it? How the players react to fans coming back. Conversation for another time, because we've got so much to get through here. Look, let's talk first of all, shall we? Not necessarily about the Premier League, not necessarily about Harry Kane, but Leicester and making history as well. I owe Tony Cottee a couple of beers as well. We had a bit of a bet there. How big an achievement is that for Leicester? And as much as I wanted Chelsea to win, it's actually really good for football in terms of they're not seen as inside the big six, when actually probably on the field they are.
Yeah, I think they're a really ambitious football club. I think people forget how the investment in the football club has just come along nicely. Because I don't think, apart from everybody in Leicester, they still talk about being the winners of the Premier League. But even from then, there hasn't been any particular pressure on them to do it again. Winning the Cup, well, see, I was delighted they won the Cup, actually. I didn't really want Chelsea to win the Cup because of TC, to be honest. But in terms of a piece of history, they just seem to be clicking them off, and now all of a sudden from 4 Cup final defeats, they turn over Chelsea, who were odds-on favourites to win the game. So I think I genuinely think it's a brilliant thing. You can look at some of the players in the Leicester squad and think they could easily play in the top 6. And you think, hang on a minute, they already are. But I'm talking about the teams that we perceive as our bigger teams in this country. There are players at Leicester City who could walk into the teams.
Which is why, as disappointed as I was with Chelsea losing, for the bigger picture of English football, I thought it was fantastic. Massive credit mark to Brendan Rodgers for overseeing this win. Champions League next season, still possible, despite that defeat at the Bridge. Tell us about the job he's done. Should Spurs try and get him? Why would he go to Spurs?
Okay, he's done a brilliant job, and it was. I think it would have been a difficult call for him to leave Celtic, given the history of them trying to do, 10 in a row, and he would have known the flack that was coming his way for making that move. But I think he's really ambitious in terms of where he thinks he should be managing, and I'm not even sure that Leicester's sort of. I think he's thinking maybe a Real Madrid one day or so. He speaks a lot about European football, and I think he believes he could manage sort of any of the top European clubs. So he's done a brilliant job. He's done it in a way that I think is stylistically pleasing on the eye. I think he's made a lot of good calls. Like dropping Maddison when he stepped out of line. Even though it was to the detriment of the team at that time. I think Tottenham should go for him because if you're looking around the Premier League, he'd be the best that they could half realistically aim for. Why would he go there? I don't think he should. I think he should be a bit more patient and think that he's got more chance of success outside of Tottenham. Why he might go? What else is there to do at Leicester, I suppose? They've won the Premier League, so he can only match what Ranieri's done there. He's won an FA Cup. If he wins an FA Cup at say, at Tottenham, then all of a sudden that's another really big achievement for him. That would be the only reason I could think, because unless Tottenham just said, here's a blank cheque, how much do you want? But
Levy's not going to do that, is he?
And Leicester could probably match it. They're not.
No chance he's got exposed by that.
No, I agree.
But not for all the reasons Mark said are spot on. But there's one huge reason for me. He runs the football club at Leicester City, or rather, he runs the footballing staff at Leicester City. I would say he has the last say who comes in. There's nobody brought in unless he gives it the okay, which is a huge thing for a manager, which is almost like the throwback from what our managers used to do. We'll scout them, I'll pick them, you buy them. Now we've got upstairs giving it, well, we've brought this player in for you, and you're like, I never asked for a right back or a right, that kind of thing. And I think the running of a football club for him is a big thing. I still think he's got stuff to, I don't think he's finished at Leicester City. And I genuinely don't see him going to...
And he could get them regular in the Champions League, which would be incredible. But I see him moving on.
Do you know what would be interesting, Mark? How much money does he get to spend in the summer? How much investment does he get to spend at Leicester City?
I think that is why you wouldn't absolutely rule it out at this point. He can then go and sort of say to the owners, well, we want X amount, because if not, then maybe I'll leave. It doesn't do you any good to say, oh, I'm going to stay no matter what.
Yeah, he could turn around and say, well, Spurs are selling Harry Kane for 150 million. Should we move on to Harry Kane?
I was going to say maybe Leicester should buy Harry Kane.
I mean, it's taken up another notch or two with him coming out publicly saying he wants to leave, isn't it? I mean, are you surprised by the timing? It's not even at the end of the season. Spurs certainly aren't happy with the timing. What are the chances, do you feel, of him leaving with 3 years left on his contract?
That's a big thing, isn't it? I suppose Levy's done a good thing, but I mean, after all, what is a contract nowadays? It's a convoluted insurance policy, isn't it, really, to give him a 5 or 6 year contract, whatever it is. You and I were players, and I don't remember ever saying to a football club with a game to go, either want a new contract or I want to leave, and you better get it organised before the World Cup. Yeah. And for me, I don't see that in Harry Kane. I didn't see him actually. He's not throwing a curveball in there, but it's not something that you really see Harry Kane coming out with. So I think it's a genuine plea for, look, I want to win stuff. I want to be successful. It's brilliant at Spurs. He's been there for, I don't know, what is it, 7 years now? 7 years. Yeah. He scored 250 goals. He's been absolutely phenomenal. But I think he genuinely thinks, right, okay, there's something else I need in my career, and it's not at Spurs.
Yeah, he doesn't need money anymore, does he? What do you think? Because we've spoken about this a few times, but this has been cranked up a notch or two now. What do you think the price would be? Who do you think would be willing to do that? Is there a difference between being willing to and having the money? And actually, what are Spurs without him? What kind of a rebuild would that be?
Well, I think in terms of, I mean, you could see him at Man City. I think the way he's developed his game over the last sort of 18 months or so to become much more than just a, and I've put that in inverted commas, just a striker. I mean, he's gone from being just a 30-goal-a-season striker to also doing the assist side of things.
He's a great number 10 now as well as a number 9,
but that is what Pep wants from his forwards. He doesn't want them to just stand up front. And I think that Man City have got the money to write a cheque for in excess of 100 million. I don't think they'd want to go to the sort of 150 that people are talking about. I would say just north of 100 million would probably be where it would, that sort of biting point. Tottenham would, in theory, become a much weaker team without him. I remember people said the same about Liverpool with Coutinho, and they ended up actually strengthening in other areas. I think it'd be harder to replace Kane's goals, obviously, but I think the bigger issue for Tottenham is they need to bring in a manager that can get that collective working better, and then you might get more out of Ndombele and Lo Celso and players like that, and you might become a better all-round team, because there's no doubt that Pep Guardiola called them the Harry Kane team. They are too reliant on one player, and if you get 100 odd million to improve the whole team, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll become worse. You might just become very different.
They didn't do it great last time they had that with Gareth Bale, did they?
No, they
would have learned
the biggest problem I've got with even the thought of Harry Kane leaving Spurs is that Daniel Levy won't let him go for just north of 100 mil. I think he's looking for big money. And then you reduce the amount of clubs that can buy him. You take Real Madrid and Barcelona out of the equation. I know that Harry said preferably staying in England. And obviously you guys have been doing different league for most of the season. I said 7 weeks ago, if someone at Man United has not already contacted, honestly, this is 2 months ago I said this, not because I thought it was going to happen, but at the time Man United were getting a bit of stick. And if someone at Man United is not doing their job properly, because they should be contacting Harry Kane's agent right now. Right now. and say, by the way, how much? 114 million? Boom, done. But Man United's problem was last year, 2 years ago, Dortmund told them it was 107 million euros for Sancho. They offered 92, 98 and 101. And Dortmund said, we want 108 million euros. But I think for Man United side of things, they went, right, let's just pretend we're kind of in for him, and then it'll look as though we're getting plenty of hits, corporation and all that jazz. So I still don't know whether even Man United would pay the money to get him, but I think they might be almost ransomed, Mark, to do something like that, because they can't just go into the season with Rashford, Greenwood and Cavani.
No.
Because they'll look for something more.
100%. And it's interesting. I mean, where do you think would suit him best? I mean, obviously, the most likely to win trophies, you go to City, but I actually personally don't feel that City will go out and pay 150 million for a 28-year-old, which is what he'd be to start next season. I think for United, it's almost like the Alexis Sanchez. It's like, we don't necessarily want to do this, but we kind of have to, and we do have the money to do it. Get Harry Kane in that United team. How competitive are they against the Cities and the others?
Massive. That's quite simply is a game changer for me, genuinely. I think they're missing that. And you actually said, tongue-in-cheek, striker, number 10. He can do a little bit of all of that as well. I think it'd be a game changer for Manchester United. That's why I said it 2 months ago. Of all the players that you're thinking Manchester United need, who do you need? You need someone else or something more. And I know they do, and Cavani's goal the other night was ridiculous. I know they drew 1-1 with Fulham, but just that kind of sparkle. Yeah. And you've obviously got the midfield that he's quite happy with. But I'm going to ask Mark a direct question. With Man City thing, and I don't see him going to Man City, I really don't. But I could see Danny Ings going to Man City. But then again, does Danny Ings become on everybody's radar then? And I know we're talking about Harry Kane at the moment, but it's coming into my head thinking, do Man City need or want a Harry Kane? I genuinely don't think they do. But Man United, I think they do.
I agree.
Chelsea, I don't think they do.
I think they could. I think Chelsea would love to, but there's no way Levy's selling to Chelsea.
I can't help thinking that this is a curveball that Harry Kane's throwing everybody, and he'll still be at Spurs next year.
Well, this is it, because we could talk for hours about this. But give me one word then, if you can. Yeah, you can.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. What was that for a word?
That's a very good word, with a lot of syllables.
Yeah.
What shirt is he going to be wearing next season?
Spurs. Unless you've got 150 million because you need your garden cutting or something, you get to cut your garden. I mean, I think I know we don't want to delay in the point here because we've covered it now. But you need someone to have 135 million in the bank, because I think that's the minimum that Levy would be looking for. How old is Harry Kane? 20?
He'll be 28 in July, I think.
28. I left the country when I was 28. I mean,
he would sell him for less, wouldn't he, if it was abroad? I think he would. I think there'd be a little bit of you could, but Real Madrid and Barcelona haven't got that.
They haven't got the money.
No, exactly.
Talking of abroad, let's go across some of the leagues, shall we? And a quick look at a few of the title deciding games across Europe. La Liga, Barcelona, blown it. Atletico Madrid, 83 points. Real Madrid, 81 points. Atletico have been top since match day 13, but they have to win because Real Madrid have got the better head-to-head. So if Real Madrid win, Atletico draw, Real Madrid do it on the head-to-head. Real Madrid play Villarreal, who are in the final of the Europa League. Atletico Madrid away to Valladolid, who need to win to possibly get out of relegation, but are certainly down there.
I saw Valladolid at the weekend. I mean, they weren't fighting against relegation. They were awful. Maybe something will happen that they'll suddenly perk up, but that Suarez goal in the 88th minute that won the game against Osasuna on Sunday, it felt like an Aguero type moment. He got his shirt off his head, he was swirling it around. That felt like almost a title clincher. I'd be very surprised now if Atletico didn't go on and complete the job against Valladolid.
Okay, I agree. In France, Liga, Lille on 80 points, PSG 79 points.
This is unbelievable, by the way.
I mean, Lille away to Angers,
Yeah.
PSG away to Brest. I'm sure I've not said that properly.
Yeah.
How big a shock would it be if Lille were to do this? This is incredible, isn't it? And how big a blow would it be to PSG and Poch as well?
Well, I suppose he could go back to managing Spurs, I suppose, because if they get beat by Monaco in the French Cup final on Wednesday night and they don't beat Brest and Lille are a point ahead, so if Lille win the game, PSG don't win the title. There was a man sacked, a couple of men sacked for less, to be honest. It would be a real blow, a real blow. I mean, is it the boy Burak Yilmaz has scored a few, but he's only got, I checked the other day, he's only got like 16, 17 goals, whereas likes have been Mbappe and all that around 26, and Moise Keane's bagged in with 13 or 15 goals or something. Or Moise Keane, the boy that he's on loan from Everton. But if they don't win that title, I dread to think what will happen to Pochettino genuinely, because I don't even know if he'll keep his job. I do think that Lille will win. I think they'll be too strong. And then we'll have to just see what happens in the capital.
Amazing. How do you see that? And then the future of Poch, because they are ruthless there, aren't
yeah,
they?
they are. I mean, I suppose he would say, you know, he's come in the middle of the season, wasn't easy, unhappy dressing room, there's a lot to do. The win against Bayern Munich, sort of, I think he'll sort of point to that and say, you know, that's where we're heading. But it's uneasy. It is uneasy if you'd lose the title to Lille. You know, that's not what Paris expect. No. So no, the pressure would be on. I would imagine he would keep his job, but then if next season didn't start well, you know, he's out quickly, I think.
So do you think Lille will do it?
Yeah, I think they'll beat Angers, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, the EFL playoffs as well. I mean, who makes the richest game in world football, the Championship playoff final, that is? Brentford go into their home game 1-0 up against Bournemouth. Mm-hmm. Swansea go into their home game against Barnsley 1-up. I mean, still very tight, isn't it? But
really tight. Yeah, I wouldn't rule back. I saw Barnsley a couple of times. I think he's done really well, Ismail Valerian. I really do. I think he'll get a bigger job. You know, I think he's a good talker. It's limited, players and quality he's worked with. I think he's got them in a position that, listen, if you'd give me a bet at the start of the season, I wouldn't have said Barnsley would be in the playoffs to try and get in the Premiership, for God's sakes. Swansea, I just think, I'll tell you the difference, the genuine difference, Scott. The goal from AU is like a little sprinkle of Premier League-ness in the Championship. It's just those particular moments in the particular game that make the difference even at that level. And I think that's what Swansea have more than what Barnsley have. And I think that's why Swansea will be in the final. The other game I think is much tighter. I think both have a sprinkling of Premier League players, maybe more on the Bournemouth side. I think that's much tougher to call. So I'm going to say that Swansea get there, but honestly, Mark, you can pick the other game, because I think that's a genuine, really, I think it could go either way.
It could go all the way.
Yeah, it could.
I think over 2.5 goals is the way to go on that one. I think it'll open up. First leg's notoriously tight. Second leg's in playoff games, usually the fireworks are lit. And both have got real quality going forward. I think it'll be a much better game.
Okay, and just quickly, League One and League Two as well. Blackpool.
You said it, Scott. You said it. You mentioned how good they were, and they are, Blackpool. I mean, the other game, Sunderland versus Lincoln, it feels a real tight one to me. I don't like Sunderland under pressure. That would be my.
I thought you said I don't like Sunderland.
no, best caveat that. Yeah, under pressure, they haven't really done it in the last couple of years.
They haven't, and I thought at one point they'd properly fallen out the whole shooting match. I can't help thinking that Sunderland should be in the Championship minimum. I don't. The whole thing's been.
Well, shouldn't
It's been a disaster.
But, yeah.
I mean, you go to the stadium, you think, my goodness, this might be this
Premier League
nice
thing.
playing with number 9 in your back, and this place bouncing. You know, they like the football. Modern day now, it's not the case. So it's a huge. The bottom line is they're under a lot more pressure than Lincoln, aren't they?
Yeah. That might be the worry, actually. Just in League Two then, Newport, very good result against Forest Green.
Yeah, stunning goal. And Newport have done really well under pressure in cup games. You know, like they've done so many giant killings. They seem to thrive on it. And Flynn's done an unbelievable job there from when he took them like bottom of the league. They're well on the way, aren't they? Now?
He's done fantastic. Okay, let's move on to the Premier League, shall we? The final games of the Premier League season, all of them coming on Sunday. Game preview 1, Aston Villa against Chelsea. This is... I mean, look, Chelsea beat Leicester on Tuesday night. Great to see fans back in as well, wasn't it? Even though it wasn't at capacity. How big was that win for Chelsea, especially after losing the cup final as well?
I mean, it hurts to lose a cup final. You could see they were hurting, actually. They were much more aggressive in the game. They were on the front foot from the first minute. I did think in the cup final they were just waiting for things to happen. They felt that they had Leicester under complete control. they weren't going to score, and it was a case of, at some stage we'll just find the breakthrough. Whereas against Leicester in this game, they actually made things happen. They played on the front foot, much more aggressive in terms of their attacking, and fully deserved to win, even if it got a little bit nervy at the end. It was a massive result because it keeps qualification in their own hands. And Thomas Tuchel will know from his life at PSG and at seeing previous managers at Chelsea, if he loses a cup final, he finishes 5th, loses a Champions League final, he's under massive pressure in going into next season. It's just how it is. So I think he needs to get top 4, just for his own mind, really, a bit of comfort. So it was a big, big victory. What I would say is that I think fans are making a big difference, and Aston Villa have got nothing to play for, but playing in front of 10,000 who've not been there all season, I think it changes the dynamic of the game ordinarily. If this was played in front of an empty stadium, I think Chelsea will be really comfortable. I think Aston Villa will turn up and at least make it a proper test.
Macca, just interested in your thoughts on Timo Werner. I mean, he's left his shooting boots in Germany, hasn't he? But how unlucky was he at Stamford Bridge? He does cause problems. And I heard Charlie Austin saying this morning on the radio that he's not a natural goal scorer. Do you go along with that?
Well, he seemed to be when every shot he had in target went in when he was in Germany. Yeah, he's maybe not. He's certainly, I think he can play in a wider area for sure. But I think Chelsea are bottom to score goals. I mean, I hold my hands up and I said I thought he would get at least 15 goals, genuinely, in a heartbeat, and that hasn't happened. But I think you'll see a different player next year. I mean, you and I have both gone abroad, and if you can hit the ground running or you can really struggle. Now, he's in a team that doesn't offer the opportunity to have a bad game, and if you don't score, you kind of scrutinise a little bit. But you can say that a lot about, there was a period where Chelsea were really struggling, and even Havertz, who I genuinely thought was another unbelievable goal scorer, I still think the two of them would be fine. I really do. And I'll be happy to hold my hand up again and say, well, you were wrong, McInally, because he didn't get 15 goals next year.
He could have had 30. Well, the thing that I like about him is that even if he's missing chances, he's creating chances almost for himself.
He tries.
He causes defensive massive problems.
Do you know what he doesn't do? His head doesn't go down. He doesn't seem to sulk. And I'm trying to think of who sulks. Boy, at Manchester United doesn't even have a smile on his face.
Martial.
Yeah, I mean, you're like thinking, really, seriously? Yeah. I mean, enjoy it. And he tries and tries and tries. He really does. Havertz is a different kind of player. He's a more, not silky player, he's a little more graceful and a little bit more measured, whereas, he's just, Timo Werner is like, I'm in and I'm trying and I'm doing. And maybe when he steps back a little bit and a few of the chances, his opportunities had this season, that might just click. And when it clicks, honestly, next year, I'll be amazed if he doesn't get 15, 18.
I agree. I'd much rather play against Havertz than I would Timo
Absolutely.
Werner. And I think he could hit 20 plus next season. I really do. Interesting. In Chelsea's hands, then, what type of team does Thomas Tuchel pick? Well, who has to play, or is it a question of waiting to see who's fit because N'Golo Conte came off?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough one to play Conte the week before a Champions League final if he's not 100%, because that is such a massive game for the club. I actually quite like Kovacic in the midfield with Jorginho. I think when Jorginho and Conte play together, you're really solid defensively, but I do think that you miss something going forward. Mason Mount has to be the first name on that team sheet. I like Reece James as that right centre-back, actually. I thought he's...
Right centre-back?
Yeah.
He did well, actually.
That was something I didn't really see in him, I have to say, but I quite like him there. Thiago Silva, absolute Rolls Royce. I do wonder whether Mendy maybe saves that shot from Tielemans, maybe.
I think that's a fair point.
I thought it was a great
shot. It was a great shot.
It was a great strike, but he's an extra 3 or 4 inches.
There's one thing about when you talk about Reece James, and I was talking about this to a guy who runs a football club the other day, and we were talking about the press, how clubs like to try and press, and if Chelsea want to try and do that to Manchester City, if that's how they go about it, and I know 2 defensive midfield players gives them a bit of a parachute, you have to have pace at the back, because if they break through that and City will hit you quickly, you need to have pace at the back. It's not just about the 2 midfield players. I think people are losing the plot when they talk about this number 6 role and this, give them all numbers. If you play with 1 defensive midfield player or 2 defensive midfield players and you want to try and press, if they get through that, you need pace at the back, because that's when you get hurt. And I think if Reece can play there I don't think I'll let him down, and it might help Thiago Silva as well, because he's the mouthpiece to make sure everybody's in the right place.
There we go. We've got a Champions League preview as well as
one
here. Just quick one then on Villa, because Mark makes a really good point, doesn't he, about what it's like playing in front of the Villa fans. They're fantastic and passionate, and this is the first game back as well. And also Jack Grealish should be desperate to show that he's fully fit to go on Southgate.
Yeah, I was going to text Dean Smith later on and say, I take it Grealish is playing on Sunday. I thought Mark described it absolutely perfectly. If they go to an empty stadium and it's the last day of the season, even if Grealish plays, I think, and if they'd played and started the way they did against Leicester, I think Chelsea win the game. There is a completely different dynamic now. I mean, I'm on a few social things and obviously in contact with a lot of Villa fans, and they are bursting at the seams for this. And I mean bursting. They will be loud. You'll think the place was full with the Aston Villa fans, and it will just put a little extra half yard into Villa. And there's the other thing, of course, and you and I have played, who wants to lose the last game of the season? Nobody. So it's going to be a much tougher game for Chelsea, and obviously they've got one eye on another big game coming up. So the imponderables for the last of the season are ridiculous, and obviously Villa want to finish on a high to make sure that Dean Smith, shows to the owners, this is where we were, and this is where we've come to.
Okay, Betfred selection then. What have you gone for?
8-0 Chelsea. I can't. What did I think I went for a draw? Did I? I can't remember what I did now.
Have you not got any notes?
No, I can't remember what. I genuinely can't remember.
You can go whatever you want.
Right, I'm going to go Villa 1, Chelsea 1.
You're picking a scoreline as well. Okay.
I think it'll be really tight. I'm going to go for Chelsea to win and under 3.5 goals, and just to get the job done.
I'm out of here. I should have looked at my score. I should have written them down, really, shouldn't I?
You should have done, but don't worry, we can just make it up as we go along. We normally do.
Yeah.
I agree with you. This will not be easy, and I think Jack, if he's anywhere near his best form, that's not what Chelsea want to do.
I must admit, if Chelsea came out the traps the way they did and create as many chances, I can see them obviously turning Villa over, but I just think the last day of the season, and with the crowds in, I just think that will give Villa a little more advantage.
I've got to go for Chelsea. Simple as that. And I do think defensively they'll be very strong as well, so I've gone for Chelsea win to 0. Which means they will be in the Champions League next season, whatever happens in the final. OK, game preview 2. It is Leicester against Spurs. And look, Mark, as we speak, we don't know the Burnley-Liverpool results at the moment, but how big a blow was that defeat at Stamford Bridge for Brendan Rodgers?
It was, because the FA Cup will feel warm now. In sort of September or August, when the Champions League draw is, and they see somebody drawing out Real Madrid and Barcelona, it'll be that tinge of disappointment if they're not in it, having for 2 years running, having sort of really been in the top 4 virtually every week, and to miss out again. And it's been unlucky with Alisson scoring a goal in the 94th minute, and those are the sort of things that could take it away from them. The simple fact is they didn't deserve anything from that game against Chelsea. They were a little bit lucky, I think, that they played Manchester United's reserves, and so actually their form, apart from winning the FA Cup, hasn't been that great. Couldn't beat 10-man Southampton, turned over by Newcastle. Those are the results that really ultimately could cost them Champions League.
Yeah. Leicester made history, of course, last Saturday, and we've already spoken about how much we think Brendan Rodgers is an excellent manager. I think he will manage Chelsea one day, but that's another issue. But if they don't make the top 4, after falling out the top 4 last season, how would you look at that?
The fact that they won the FA Cup, I think, will deaden the blow. But I said at the start of our show today that I think they're a progressive team. I think the investment in the football club has been done rightly. I don't think there's been too much pressure put on them to go and win the league again, but to try and bring in proper players. Remember, Tielemans, was he not going to Manchester United, Yuri Tielemans, and he went to Leicester? That's a bit of a coup. They've got some of the young players. The boy Harvey Barnes was wanted by a lot of clubs, and I know he's been injured, etc. And Madison and Vardy's been brilliant. You've got to think that if they don't make it in the position they were in, I think it'll be a huge disappointment. In-house, I think there'll be a lot of tears. Out-house, they'll be telling us, look, we've had a great season.
Yeah.
But there's no way, if we think Brendan Rodgers is that good, and I'm telling you some of the players could easily get into the other teams in and around that top 6, then they should be thinking we're finishing in the top 4 for Champions League. And if they don't, it won't be a disaster, but it'll certainly be a terrible slap in the face.
It'll be a massive disappointment.
Yes, it will, absolutely.
No chance of top 4 for Spurs now. But Harry Kane will be desperate to finish the season as a the winner of the Golden Boot, and could be his last game. We don't know, do we?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at, I remember I've done for this fixture, I'm sure I've gone for Spurs to win it, for the simple reason that if Kane goes, he'll have to score and they'll have to leave on a high. And that header by Alisson means that Liverpool have done it again. And I don't know how they're going to finish top four, but they are. And Leicester are not. And it sounds ridiculous. Because 6 weeks ago, I was saying to everybody and anybody that would listen to me, Leicester have been fantastic.
Yeah.
They're a certainty for top four.
So you think Spurs will win this one, do you?
I think Spurs will win. I genuinely do. I think the season is not cut up for Leicester, but I think the emotion of the cup final, the performance, albeit in the last 20 minutes against Chelsea, was better. But they might just have hit that little point of the season that, I can't believe it. And I think they might get caught now. For the fact, I haven't said that all season. I may obviously still be wrong, but what have Liverpool got? Burnley and Palace. I mean, the last day of the season, Liverpool will score 4 or 5 against Palace. So it all really depends on that result against Burnley. And can Leicester somehow muster up a performance against Tottenham, who, by their standards or Levy's standards or whoever's standards at Spurs, it's been a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
And they must try and finish as strong as they can.
Spurs have actually 3 wins in the last 4. What have you made of Ryan Mason as an interim manager? It's got to be his last game in charge, I'm sure. But have you seen enough to suggest that he could be a manager elsewhere?
Hard to say, really. I mean, you'd like to think so, because often you do find that if you come out of the game early, you know, and then you put all your efforts into coaching, that's where some of the best coaches have come from. And so why not? But 29, he's not ready for it yet. What he has done, I think, is just given the players that sort of freedom to go and express themselves. The times he's come up against real good coaches, like Bielsa, give him a bit of a going over with Leeds. But I think he's just said, you know, go out there and play. You know, it's not rocket science. Sometimes maybe it was a little bit too complicated. If you've got Son, you've got Kane, you've got Bale, you've got Dele Alli, you 4 go and play, the rest of the team can keep it solid.
He came out for an interview the other day, and I thought, is that lad on an apprenticeship?
He looks younger than 29, doesn't he?
He's won a raffle to take the team for a day. And I don't know whether he's been given the proper respect, because he's been given the job, and he's an ex-football player. Unfortunate with his career, he's had to finish early, but he's within the football club, and Levy's given him a job, and you cannot say he hasn't done decent, for goodness sake. The only thing is that the period prior to him even being associated with the manager's job of Spurs had been such a disaster that, I think it's quite right just to keep it in-house and have a look, because that, regardless of trying to keep Harry Kane, he better get the job. Daniel Levy better get this right when he gives the job to someone else. But I still think he's done really well, Ryan. I really do. And incidentally, he hasn't said anything to the lads apart from exactly what Mark said. Do us a favour, lads. Do the right thing. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Smell the danger when we're defending, and let's see if we can create a few chances. Doesn't have to say a lot more.
Yeah, great to see Chrissy Powell in behind the
really
scenes
good
as well. Okay, so your Betfred selection here
is Leicester 1, Spurs 2.
Okay.
I'm just going to go over 2.5 goals. I mean, Alan could both be winners there.
I'm happy with that, yeah.
I've gone for a score draw in this one. I think Harry Kane will be shooting from everywhere. I really do. That golden boot.
Including for Leicester.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Leicester will be desperate to win this, but I don't see Spurs winning, but I do see Leicester not winning this one. Okay, game preview 3. It is Liverpool against Palace. And again, we don't know the result of the Burnley game, but they can't afford to wait for a 95th minute winner from Alisson coming up from a corner, can they? I mean, what an emotionally powerful interview post-match as well.
I find it hard to watch stuff like that when you know, having been in situations when you've scored a late goal, but the history that we know that happened to the young goalkeeper is I don't know whether it's written in the stars. I have no idea. But the finish for him to score and speak about his father and his parents and the whole thing is just, I don't know, just brilliant, just fantastic. I mean, sometimes I hate VAR. And at the moment in time, I'm not particularly enamoured by most of the football. But then I get dragged back in with something like that. It was just sensational. Fantastic.
In his second language as well. I mean, if they haven't beaten Burnley, they'll need help elsewhere. If they have, it's in their hands. You touched on it just before. A few weeks ago, they were completely out of it, weren't they?
They were not even remotely in it at all. But even like, where are Liverpool? Oh yeah, they're 6th, 7th, whatever. I don't know. Nobody was particularly bothered. But they have a position. Listen, the run in for them has been kind, I think, and I don't see them not completely and utterly demoralising Crystal Palace. I know that Hodgson's obviously said he's going to leave, and with that, I'm not surprised. It'd have been nice for Roy to get out with a win, but Liverpool, like you say, we'll find out exactly what they need at the weekend. But I can see Salah's having a good finish this season. There's no way he doesn't score on Saturday, and I think I'm giving Palace 2 goals, 3 goals of a start here. I think Liverpool will be all over them like a rag, because that's the only way they can play, the only way he'll want them to play Klopp. And we kind of watch this space, really, isn't it?
And he won't want to leave it to goal difference if that is the case as well. What type of Palace are we going to see, especially with Roy coming out and saying that's it?
Well, I think that their motivation is probably on the home game in midweek. 10,000 fans at Selhurst can give Hodgson the send off he deserves for making sure Palace have been nowhere near the relegation chatter for the last few years, and most of the other teams of that kind of level have had at least one.
Yes.
Even if they've ultimately stayed up, it's got really hairy at some points. But you've never felt like Palace are getting relegated. I know the football is not for everybody, and the training sessions can it can be a little bit monotonous and very repetitive. But he's done what he's needed to do on a budget that I think other teams could get relegated on. So he has done remarkably well, I think, in that regard, to just make sure that Palace are nowhere near the relegation. It helps that you've got somebody like Zaha, but it's not just Zaha. I think he had a bad time at Liverpool and he got a bit grumpy as well. And I'm not sure if that's his true character, but certainly elsewhere he's come across as a nice guy that people have got a lot of respect for. I think in terms of this game, though, there's 12 players out of contract last game of the season.
Eze's not fit for this either.
I mean, I agree with Alan. I think that they'll put more effort into the Arsenal game in midweek at home.
Yeah, it's bad news for...
There's 3 teams that have been relegated would swap places with Palace right now.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, apart from Big Sam at West Brom, and I couldn't believe he took the job because I thought it would be very, very difficult. I think he might even have kept Fulham in the division had Roy Hodgson been the manager. I think that's how good he is, genuinely. And I know that Palace will be disappointed in all the things that Mark have spoken about, the monotonous training sessions, what you have to go through. Everybody needs to know what you're doing.
We would have hated it back in the day, but you have to do it now.
Yeah, well, I had Graham Taylor, and we used to go through quite a lot at Villa. And we used to play shadow without the ball.
Yeah.
What that went out. Yeah. But I think he's done a really good job. Really good job.
So how big a moment is this? It's a sliding doors moment for Palace then, isn't it? They got it wrong last time. They brought in Roy.
I'm a little bit surprised, Mark, that... Sorry, Scott, I was going to say that he's actually said he's going to take a break from football. I thought he would actually maybe stay within the regime at Palace and kind of try and help that thing along.
No, he wants to get away from it.
Yeah.
The stresses of it, travel, spend time with his missus.
He is, what, 73, 74?
Yeah. So how big a moment is this for Palace, and who would you suggest?
Well, it's a huge moment. It's to bring a new manager in, to obviously finish higher in the league, because you have that kind of aspirations when you're bringing someone in. Who gets that job? Originally, I thought Eddie Howe. That's who I thought originally. And I know he's been linked to Celtic, but I don't understand why that's not going through, because what would the stopping block be there? Because if Celtic actually be the manager, regardless of the situation in Scotland right now with Rangers being all conquering...
Could that just be a compensation thing to do with Bournemouth? Needs to do a whole year? I don't know. But
I don't know either. Maybe, but...
There's Sean Dyche, there's Frank Lampard. What type of manager and who would you go for?
I would take Frank Lampard. I like Frank. I think he's done really well. I mean, he took the Chelsea job over when Chelsea couldn't spend 3 pence. He took over the embargo, brought in all the younger players, qualified for Champions League. And we know the circumstances at Chelsea Football Club that at any time that seat's wobbling as you're sitting in it, even if you're 4-0 up. It's just that's the way it is. But I would certainly like to see Frank Lampard back in, genuinely. Yeah, I think it's a different kind of job, Crystal Palace, Mark. I don't think it's not always easy going. There'll be bumps in the road there, and I think I can see Frank handling it.
Yeah, lots of play. Go on.
Obviously, the one Alan mentioned him earlier, but Ishmael used to play for Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
did a really good job at Barnsley. Sort of person that might.
I just threw it. I know. Just see if you were listening.
You like doing that. You like doing that. Yeah. Well, look. I mean, a lot of players out of contract. It'd be really interesting to see what direction they go in. In terms of this game, then, and I mean, it's a real shame. I think Eze, someone I really liked watching the Championship. He's going to be out for mid next season as well. So clearly not fit for this one. You've alluded to it earlier. You see a big win.
I'm going to go 0-4, only because Liverpool have to be.
Well, it's at Anfield, but
4-0. 4-0.
Yeah.
And that's another reason, by the way. And they will be seriously like a wound up spring, and Klopp will just go, pew, go.
I'm going to go for Alexander-Arnold to score. I just saw him against West Brom really popping up in advanced positions. I think they'll have so much of the ball. Palace defend deep. Those sort of pot shots from sort of 20 yards, free kicks, that kind of thing. And I mean, I think Gareth Southgate's got it massively wrong if he doesn't take Alexander-Arnold as part of the 26. He's got one more game to prove him right.
He's coming back into form. He was left wing at one time, wasn't he? And nearly scored as well.
I had a check on Betfred the other day. Salah, any time, if he's 1 to 100, I'm still having the bet. I'm still having the bet at any time.
I'm
Salah
going big on him this week, let me tell you. Listen, Palace will try to make it difficult because of Roy, but you're right, the fans, Liverpool will be absolutely up for this. Salah to score at least a couple for me, and Liverpool to win both halves is what I'm going for. OK, game preview forward is West Ham against Southampton. And Macca, look, unfortunately, West Ham can't make the top four. Shame. But what have you made of them this season, and where did they just fall short for you?
I think probably Moisey will be thinking that, as well as they've done, and incidentally, he made one of the signings that changed their fortune in Jesse Lingard. Because there was nobody, and I mean nobody, wanted Jesse Lingard. But having worked with them, and obviously sat down with them, I've known David Moyes for a long time. In fact, David Moyes didn't get the big round of applause when he came back to West Ham, because people are thinking, okay, what a job he's done. But they've just stopped short in terms of maybe having a goal scorer that's going to get you 20 goals, 18 goals. I know Antonio does really well. Lingard's chipped in, Jared Bowen's scored a couple of goals, but they don't have anybody that's going to have that kind of influence in the team. Midfield's been good, defence has been a lot better, goalkeepers hasn't put a foot wrong, really, to be honest. But in terms of the quality they have in the team, it's just not quite been enough, maybe. Although the players I've mentioned have done fantastically well.
It feels harsh of me to say where did they fall short, because it's amazing to see them right up there.
Yeah.
Can they do it again next season? Will they do it again next season? And are you saying they just need to get a striker, and how important, I suppose,
I'm saying
to confirm permanently Jesse Lingard?
Yeah, I think that would be something that would be high priority. But I think, knowing David, he knows that, if you watch West Ham, the amount of half chances and chances they create is enormous. You're talking 8, 9, 10 a game. And if and Antonio's not been fit all the time, and sometimes they haven't even played with a striker. I think that'll be one of his priorities next year. I really do. Jesse Lingard is not that number 9; he's a little bit more than that. But if you've got the likes of is it Souček and Soufal and keep, I don't think that's going to be possible
this summer.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be possible. If I'm one of the bigger clubs in Europe, and the ones that we have in this country, I think the boy is absolutely different class. I think he's different class. So that would be a problem. But nevertheless, they'll be getting big money for him, and as long as you give David the money, I'm sure he'll spend it properly. And West Ham will be certainly in and around that top 6 next year, I think, yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think they can keep Rice? And again, we talk about fans coming back. I can tell you from personal experience, they are so passionate, aren't they? I mean, they're going to be up for this one.
They will, yeah, because whatever happens, it's been a really good season. I think they'll want to show their appreciation for the campaign. They've had to watch from afar. I live in the West Ham area. They're very excited and very pleased with what they've seen this season. And
these are the West Ham misses.
Yeah,
really?
And rightly so, because what I do think though is that next bit is actually, and speaking as a Spurs fan, Tottenham finished in sort of 6th for a long time. Getting from 6th to 4th can be really difficult because you're talking about bringing in a couple of forward players. They're the most expensive to buy. You then have that situation where somebody like Rice stands out, and then the big teams want him, and then you get set back because he departs. And that was something that happened to Tottenham with Modric and Bale. And it can actually be a really frustrating time trying to get to that next bit. And I think Moyes had that with Everton as well, really, where they were almost there.
Leicester are finding it hard.
Yeah, they are. So I think that is it might not be as simple as just sort of being top 6 next season, because
they're a demanding club, West Ham, without being a top 6 team, if you know what I mean. And I think we spoke about the big summers for various different teams in this league. it's a big summer for West Ham because the fans will expect on this run of form to strengthen the team. So, and Mark's just spoken about, well, how much money are you going to spend? If we sell Rice, we might be spending money. If they keep Declan Rice and still have to spend money to strengthen the team, because if they finish 10th, 12th, 13th next year, there's upset. There's
expectation now, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And quite rightly so in terms of the way they played. But now they're like, okay, how many times have we heard, well, surely we must invest in the team so we do finish in exactly the same place or in and around Europe next year. So it'll be really interesting to see how David... And I heard David Moyes saying, I think his contract is going to be extended and he's going to sign a new contract. There's just crossing the T's, dotting the I's, which is good news. So I'm presuming then he thinks he might be getting money to spend and already pinpointed who he wants to bring to the
They're already going... If they don't sign Lingard, they're already a worse team than what they are now.
Absolutely.
So that, you know, it becomes a really tricky one when you loan players.
Mark, if you were Lingard, would you go back to Manchester United or would you stay with West Ham?
I think I'd look for somewhere in between, maybe.
Or would you go to Spurs?
It might be like there might be like somewhere in between that Man United and West Ham, maybe a Leicester, or Leicester might not need him, but you know, I mean, I think he'd improve someone like Arsenal, for instance, if he plays like he is.
You would improve Arsenal with the greatest respect. With the greatest respect.
There might be. If I played for Arsenal, there'd definitely be worse. It wouldn't be a bad thing. I think he should.
Langdon and Aubameyang.
I think he should.
He'd be feeding them in. Don't worry about that.
I think he should go to West Ham because I think West Ham have been really good for him and he's been really good for them. Yeah. But it doesn't always work out like that.
I agree. Let's talk about Southampton. They've won the last two as we speak. I suppose beating Fulham and Palace at home they should. What have you made of them this season? What do you think they'll do here? Could this be Danny Ings' last game?
Yeah, I think it will be. I think somebody will take Danny Ings. I genuinely expect Manchester City to be one of the main contenders to try and take him. I do. I rate Danny Ings really highly, Scott. He is always a goal threat. I know he's had a bit of an injury problem in terms of trying to get 34 games of a season out of him in cup games, etc. But Southampton have done well. I mean, remember, was it 7-1 and 8-0? You know, they're proper spankings they are. And they've got to say Ralph Hasenhüttl to galvanise the team back to get results. You know, Ward-Prowse has been fantastic in the middle of the park. I think defensively at times they've looked shambolic. And I'm careful with the word that I use. Don't want to say, you know, really bad, but they've just looked shambolic.
You don't want to say really bad, you just use shambolic.
Yeah, I know, sorry.
Can't get worse than that.
I was getting a bit, but they've just, honestly, I'm thinking, what? I watched you last week and you were excellent. And now you can't kick the ball over the halfway line to try and clear the danger. It was a really strange season, very, very peaks and troughs for them. But with some very good players in it that have done enough to keep them in the division.
OK, capable of anything. What do you think of them in this game? What's your Betfred selection here?
Who are they playing at the weekend?
It's West Ham, Southampton.
Moisey all day long. Last day, Moisey.
Fans in,
the whole shooting match. Lingard scores. Spurs, Southampton have done enough to stay in the league, and they're starting to build for next season. Although I saw Everton have had a right result, they want to keep Walcott. That's a right result for Everton. That is one lucky boy he is, by the way. But nevertheless, I think West Ham 2-0.
Okay, yeah, I've gone for West Ham.
Something like
West
that.
Ham win 2-0 as well. Yeah,
I'm going to go for both teams to score. I just think West Ham. Looks a little bit more vulnerable defensively, but it's more about Southampton can't keep the back door shut, but I've actually got some decent forward players.
Okay. Game preview 5, the final one here as well. Wolves against Man United. Nothing riding on this game for either side. Will Ollie play his first strength when he's got the Europa League final just 3 days later and still not won a major trophy at United? How much pressure is there on him to win the Europa League?
Yeah, huge. All or nothing almost, genuinely.
In what sense? Nothing means...
Well, in terms of... I think he's been under pressure since he signed on the dotted line to say, I'll be the manager of Manchester United. And if they don't win anything, he is a shaky peg from losing his job. It's as simple as that. And incidentally, I think if they win it, I think they'll still be thinking, we need someone that should be the manager of Manchester United. It's not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That's all I hear living in the Northwest. Listen, there's people adore him. But there is such a section of Man United fans that still think, well, yeah, we'll finish second, and Ollie's way above over his head. But it's a huge game for Manchester United.
Yeah.
I mean, and another thing I don't go along with, and I don't know about Mark, when they played a weekend team the other week there, and they played 2 young lads, and some idiot said about devaluing the competition. If you and I had signed contract at Manchester United and we were in the Premier League squad, and someone complained that you and I played, he can play whoever he wants.
Of course he can.
Whoever he wants. Doesn't matter if they're playing Real Madrid, Liverpool, or the Brazil 1970 World Cup team. If you've signed a contract at Manchester United, then the manager's entitled to play exactly who he wants. And you know who Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to look after? Manchester United and himself. If you complain about something he does, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bleeding hearts I can't have.
Okay, so what United side do we think is going to be put out here? And in terms of Wolves, I mean, what's in it for them here?
I mean, the United team, I think, will be the reserves. Essentially, the team that played against Leicester, it will be one like that, really, because you want to keep everybody fit for that Europa League final. I mean, I thought Wolves were terrible at Tottenham, like really bad. And I know some people have been saying that they've been like that for a while, and I don't watch Wolves every week. They're not the most attractive team, are they? They're not the sort of, I've got to watch Wolves, but they're really bad at Tottenham. And it's the sort of the things that you usually associate with Wolves, the sort of honesty in their play and sort of the hard work, the organisation, that you just took for granted, really. When Nuno got them out of the Championship, then they've really good Premier League seasons. They were lucky to lose 2-0, and that was against a Tottenham team that's not great. I mean, they had the woodwork 3 times. Cody's clearing, 2 off the line. It felt a pretty unacceptable performance, really, for a team that, felt like they were on the beach, both mentally and also just physically. Some of them just weren't at it. I don't understand that, really. Pretty sad.
Patch on last year, weren't they? They're a patch on.
Sand between the toes right now then. So
I think so.
What's your Betfred selection here?
Oh, I think Man United are still, I don't care what 11 play. This is a really poor finish for Wolves at the end of the season. The boy Silva is obviously a good player. They paid 40 million for him. I don't even see him having 90 minutes in him, Scott. I don't see him being that strong yet to carry the Jimenez role. I really don't. And the other players have just not been anywhere 70%, 60% of what they were last year. So yeah, but this is, I won't put a score on it, but I think Man United, I don't care what price they are, they're in my doubles and trebles. I'm
going to go for Van der Beek to score. Been really disappointed with him. He'll say he hasn't played enough. This is a type of game he will play. He scored 3 goals for the Netherlands this season, more than he has for Manchester United. He's good opportunity for him.
Yeah, second string United side, still good enough to win. I can see both teams scoring because I think United will, defensively perhaps be vulnerable. But both teams to score, United to win, definitely, all 3 points. Okay, fantasy football picks this weekend, where we pick a player that we believe will stand out. Now, we actually went for the same, and I appreciate you. Normally, I let the guest pull rank, but you've very kindly...
Not for me, you don't. I ain't a guest here, by the way. What are you talking about? I'm bowing to you. You're presenting it, so you're going for?
That's very kind of you. I'm going for Mo Salah. I mean, look, Liverpool fans in, Salah going for the golden boot. I talk about Harry Kane shooting from everywhere. He is going to be absolutely everywhere. Any penalties, free kicks, let me take them. I can see him getting 1, 2, even a hat-trick in this particular game against Crystal Palace. So who have you gone for then?
Well, there's one team that's finishing really strong, is Leeds United, and the boy Rodrigo, his couple of goals against Burnley were just absolutely delicious, and he looks as hungry as anyone is in the whole of the Leeds team. There's no way they'll down tools, so I'm going to go the boy at the weekend will be not only a Leeds win, but him to absolutely shine, Rodrigo. Yeah, they've been fantastic Leeds this season, haven't they? And you're right, nobody else's side has the beach on their mind at all. They'll be at it 100%. Mark, who have you gone for?
Another Leeds player, but Bamford. I think West Brom.
If the two of them play well, Mark, it'll be 6-0.
Well, yeah. I mean, we spoke right at the start of the season when we did the pre-season stuff. Leeds top half was a really strong fancy. They've fully deserved that top 10, and yeah, they're not stopping yet. Okay, look, that's it actually. But one thing I just want to throw out to you or ask you, see if you know. Obviously, we talked earlier about Alisson and the 95th minute header. Now, he's one of, 6 goalkeepers to have scored in the Premier League. He's the first with a header as well. Between you, can you name the other 5?
Mark, mate.
We've had one of them sitting there. Robinson. Yes. Paul Robinson scored for...
Robin scored, that's
yeah,
right.
Both scored one.
Jimmy Glass.
In the Premier League.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going back to Carlisle staying in the division there. Did Mark Bosnich score? No. Did Bosnich score? No.
Peter Schmeichel scored in the... Peter Schmeichel?
Peter Schmeichel's one. There's another one where, I'll give you so much of a clue here. Graham Souness talked about it after the game. He was manager at the time.
He was at Blackburn. Brad Friedel.
Exactly. So we've got Schmeichel, Friedel, Robinson.
Robbo.
2 more.
Oh, man.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
No, I was going to say back in my day, Luton goalie on that's
That ended up in the Premier League, yeah.
No, I can't.
No, I'm done.
Howard and Begovic.
Does Howard score for Everton?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
And Begovic as well. Who was that with Stoke City then?
Doesn't say here. Just says own half.
I mean,
2013.
Wow.
But listen, you've done well because I put you under pressure there.
Goals.
Yeah, we didn't know that was coming.
Goalkeeper scoring goals. Do me a favour.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Back up. Fantastic to see you.
Thanks for the
Been
invitation.
a long time.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed it.
Really enjoyed it. It was great.
It's absolutely flown by. Mark, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Okay, that's it for this week. We've just got one more show left, of course. Looking forward to that one. Remember, on behalf of Betfred and also the Racing Post, if you are to gamble, please gamble responsibly.